Black Power, Black Beauty, Black by popular demand. This is Black's History Month, a 28-day celebration of Black exploitation films. Which Way Is Up is the type of movie that had you worried at first. It gets off to a slow start, and the story that it tries to tell initially is mind-numbingly boring. It almost tanks the film, but if you hang in there, you end up experiencing one of the craziest comedies of the 70s that just keeps getting crazier the longer you watch. Which Way Is Up is a remake of an Italian movie named The Seduction of Mimi and stars Richard Pryor as three different characters. The main character, Leroy Jones, a pastor named Lennox Thomas, and his own father named Rufus Jones. There's some effort put into making Rufus look like a different person, but the pastor could have used a little work. Rufus works as an orange picker, but the employees are restless. They want to strike and form a union to get more rights, but they need somebody to cross over and lead the crew. Leroy literally stumbles and falls into the position, but in the process, upsets some of the local henchmen, trying to prevent the union, and is run out of town. I just wanted to get that little synopsis out the way, because even though that's a catalyst for the story, and it's a theme throughout the whole movie, it's honestly pointless, and not even a little bit interesting, unless you're somebody who cares about workers' rights protests and unions and stuff like that in your movies, in which case, you can ignore everything else I'm about to say. But the real plot in Which Way Is Up is what happens once Leroy is ran out of town. He meets a protester named Vanetta, played by Lynette McKee from Sparkle, and immediately falls in love. Aw, that's sweet. It would be a love story if Leroy wasn't already married to a woman named Annie Mae back home, played by Margaret Suge Avery. That's where this movie goes completely insane. Leroy somehow convinces Vanetta not only to be in a relationship with him, but also to have a kid with him. And when Leroy has to move back to his hometown, he also gets Vanetta to agree to avoid his wife and stay on the other side of town. She's weirdly okay with him still being married, but since it's a comedy, you can kind of excuse the unlikeliness of it. She only has one request. He can't have sex with any other woman, including his wife. This leads to Leroy trying to live a double life basically, in plain sight. By day, he goes to work and then goes to see his mistress and son, and by night, he goes to spend the night with his wife. It's just as silly as it sounds. He thinks it's gonna be easy, because before he left, he couldn't pay his wife to have sex with him. But by the time he gets back, she's a freak. So I laughed hard watching him try to come up with every excuse in the world to avoid sleeping with Annie Mae. Like, how long did he think he was going to be able to do this? It's no shock he only makes it to day 2 before the whole thing completely blows up. One of my favorite scenes is when he learns that Annie Mae now has a vibrator in her life that she got while he was gone, and he's so traumatized by the realization that when he gets back to Vanetta, it makes him all paranoid.
What's that?
Just my electric toothbrush, honey.
Let me see.
Here.
This part of the story is the real reason you should watch Which Way Is Up, and there's so much more comedy that happens outside of this. Pryor's physical and verbal comedy is on point here, and it's fun seeing early examples of a comedian playing multiple roles. Old Man Rufus especially stands out. I've seen some people say he's unlikable and selfish, and yeah, he's supposed to be. You're supposed to want him to fail and get what's coming to him, but somehow he keeps getting away with it until he doesn't. It's almost a shame that more time couldn't be dedicated to Leroy trying to balance his life, but the movie does find a way to tie the work stuff into his personal life, even if it is still nowhere near as entertaining. Which Way Is Up was directed by Michael Schultz, a prolific director whose credits you should already know by now. He's an underrated director whose movies always impress me. Every Black's History Month, his movies are always the standout, and Which Way Is Up might be the funniest one I've ever talked about. If you watch it, just do your best to power through the beginning and get to the actual best parts of the movie. Every aspect of it is absurd and over the top, but that's what makes it great and an underrated comedy.